Welcome to NWA Cane Corsos podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
Guys, okay, here we go. Let me get my stuff together. While we all over the place here. Let's see. All right, there we go. Gentlemen. What's going on?
Joe.
Welcome, everybody.
How's it going, Joe?
Man, I'm in it to win it. Everybody, welcome back to the show. We got some heavy hitters tonight. Today's topic is going to be conditioning. For the guys who just not tune in, this might be your first time. I'm going to start out by letting these young men tell them who they are. Tell you who they are. Javon, you want to start?
Of course. My name's Lamont Morgan. I'm the owner of La Potenza Cane Corso. Been doing the Corso for, I believe, May 28 years. I train as well. I train anything that got 4 paws, a tail, and teeth. Preferably not them little ones, though. But I train maybe 100 to 150 dogs a year. Do a lot of stuff with military personnel guys with PTSD, a lot of officers. But more importantly, I deal with everyday people more than anything. Those are families and those kind of things. So I pride myself on nothing else that, being able to help a family truly get the enjoyment out of their dogs. But I'm just old simple country boy stuck in the city.
I feel you. Schoolboy.
Yes, sir. Now, how am I going to follow up on that, man? I'm nobody. Yeah, I'm Richard Garcia. I nom de guerre, or AKA whatever, schoolboy. I've had that name since early on. I've been involved with the American Pit Bull Terrier for 44 years.
Wow.
Started off a traditional sense back in the day as a competitor. And it, when you get involved with the breed like that, if you have a mind to, it's important to understand and be involved to some extent of all facets of it. So I'm also a conformation show judge. I've judged weight pools. I've done seminars in the U.S. and in Mexico in English and Spanish. I've judged all breed shows where I judge the pit bulls and other judges judge the other breeds. I've been on several hog hunts and just different kind of things involving the American Pit Bull Terrier. It's a passion I had since I've been involved with them. And now I just, I write books and have my own channel and do things like this. I really appreciate you having me on, Joe, because I think it's important that I love pit bulls. There ain't no other dog for me than pit bull, but I've had other breeds of dogs. We had working cow dogs when I was younger, and I've had German shepherds, mutts, all kinds of stuff. So I just love dogs, and I think it's important that regardless of what kind of dog you have, what breed it is everyone has their place when it comes to dogs, regardless of the breed or whatever it is you do with them. And I love sporting and working animals, not just dogs, but horses, cattle, pigs, agriculture. And I've been involved in a lot of stuff throughout my life. I'm getting old, so when you live as long as I do, you kind of get around a little bit here or there. Been in several different countries, Central America, Europe, and Mexico, all over the U.S. And now I'm living the dream by doing this.
Gotcha.
I have to admit, Miss Schoolboy, I'm a pit bull man, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was born and raised that way, and that's where I learned dogs. And that's the big difference. Is most people this day and time, they don't necessarily know what that statement means when you say, no,
right.
I know dogs and I work dogs. They attribute it to biting a sleeve or doing, things that like that versus truly conditioning a dog, going out in the woods with a dog, tracking a dog, and so on and so on. So I started with the pit bull when I was a little boy. I think I was about 11 years old. When you have a kid up under you, we don't get to talk. We just get to do the work.
Yeah.
We the cheap labor. But through that cheap labor, you learn. And I can attribute a lot of my knowledge by being that cheap labor. And I learned some things from some men like yourself that had, been in the pit bull world for 30, 40 years at that time when I was a kid. And they taught you so many things blindly without even trying, about dogs that has carried me years and years later. At 45, saying I started with dogs at 11, that was when I actually had the passion to work a dog. But, I've had dogs all my life, and my dad, he could take a mutt through a canine. Don't ask me how he did it, but he did it. And he felt the pit bull was the dumbest dog on earth. And this is what he would say, if it wasn't attributed to a shepherd, he said it was dumb. So he said, I remember when I got my first one, he said, now boy, show me what it'll do. Because he knew I knew how to do a few things, and he wanted to see if I was just getting a dog for show, if I was getting a dog to show what I could help that dog do that it had naturally, And when I showed him, he said, "Well, yours ain't as dumb as the other ones."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he gave me a little slack, but some of the older men that, I did get a chance to be around, and some of them are legends.
Right.
Yeah, some of them are legends in the pit bull world. They could see a puppy and they could point it out and pick the things that were great about it and the things that weren't so great. And one thing I find now is that term kennel blind, where every dog you got is great. Every dog you got is a champion. Every dog you got is something special, and it's better than the next person. And that's kennel blind, because I can go through every dog I got and find something that it could be better.
Mm-hmm.
It could have better conformation. It could be thicker in the rear. It could be, it could cut better, and so on and so on. It could have a better drive. So I tried. If I didn't learn anything else, I learned that you don't get kennel blind, because you can always make better. You can always do better. And that was whether it was weight pulling, or flirting, or whatever it may be. But Joe, I know we might be getting a little off.
No, we good. We talking about it.
Yeah.
Let the spirit.
Well, that's a good point, because the thing with kids, when you get involved with anything as kids, you may not understand what you're doing, and like you said, we're the help.
Right.
So you're told what to do. You go through the motions, you do it, but you pick up stuff that an adult wouldn't pick up on.
Yeah.
Because there's something about kids and dogs, they're in tune with each other. I even have a handicapped grandson. I posted him here and their pictures, all that. He just naturally took to the pit bulls and they took to him. They could understand that he's different.
Mm-hmm.
So they treated him differently, meaning they were more docile around him, more understanding, trainable with him. He wouldn't lead his dogs around with a lead. He'd let them around by their ear.
Mm-hmm.
He would just grab them by the ear and make them do whatever he wanted. He could get them to do things I couldn't do. Even my own children, I wasn't raised with pit bulls, although I was raised with dogs. My children were raised with pit bulls.
Mm-hmm.
So they know things just inherently of being around them that even to this day, some things I don't know. Like my daughter, she could teach a dog to jump up a tree, chase a squirrel. I don't know how she did it. She just got them to do it. I couldn't do it, but
smarter.
Yeah. So there's things about, and you may not pick up on it till later. You may not understand it later, but you have that inherent knowledge that just comes from being around them. And what happens as far as the kennel blind thing, it's you have to see things at a top level work to know the difference, and at a bottom level, so that you have something to compare it to.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, if a competitor is a competitor, but he's not a breeder, that competitive nature or that understanding about conditioning and all that stuff, it doesn't transfer over to the breeding thing. That's something that always baffled me. How come they don't get it, how to breed dogs? Mm-hmm. So they either overlook things or they get stuck in purity. I want pure blood and pure this and pure that, and keep my blood this way and that way. And what happens is their family of dogs deteriorates right before their eyes. They're not paying attention. You got to be honest with yourself. Yeah. What's wrong with your dog? Somebody asked me what were the faults of my dogs, I would tell them. Right. Just like when I give my record, all these victories I had, but I got to tell them the losses too.
You better
to keep things in perspective and be honest. And I learned, throughout the years, most everybody loses, man. How did you lose? Why did you lose? Those are learning experiences that if you're smart, you pick up on, and then you improve on those, and then you get better at it. And it's the same with breeding. If you don't have a breeding program, just like if you don't have a conditioning program, a base, a foundation, and if you don't understand dogs, where you know how to condition a dog regardless of what kind of dog it is, and you know how to breed animals regardless of what kind of animals they are, then you get stuck and you never improve.
Right. one of the things that was challenging for me going from the pit bull, and I never went away from the pit bull. I still have them to this day. But taking on a larger breed was you lost some athletic ability. And you had to look at, I had to learn to look at a young age. I had to learn to looking at a dog for what it was bred for.
Mm.
The Corso at that time was bred for protection. That's what it was introduced to me as, and that's what I understood it to be. There wasn't many shows, so it wasn't a show dog per se, but it was basically a family protector. Well, me coming from the pit bull world, they were as well, if that's what their purpose was geared toward as a pup. But I was so used to the athletic ability. And then I had to learn how to transform that idea from the pit bull to the Corso. So it always made me favor the smaller Corso.
Mm.
It made me favor the more athletic ones. And unfortunately, we're in a time now where people think a Corso is supposed to be 175, 165.
Right.
Because, bigger is better in America. Bigger wallet, bigger car, bigger house. They don't necessarily want the biggest woman. They kind of slow down. Bigger is better.
Mm.
So when I was really introduced to it, you had Corsos that were 110, 105. If you had a 125, he was a big boy, And then of course you had things start to be bred into him that made him a little larger. But at the same time, I was focused on the ability. I love a dog that's functional, especially for what it was bred for. When I think of a male is bred to be balls to the wall. It's not bred to take on a Sunday walk with your grandmother,
Right.
So I love the fact that when a dog is functional for what it was bred for. And it took me a little while to kind of adjust to the Corso versus what coming from the pit bull side. But once I got to the point of where I said, if I'm a breed, I need to breed with something that, number one, match my lifestyle, because I get up and go. Two, that was functional and what the breed standard said it was. And I had to have a dog that was bred structurally, intelligence, because I don't care how good he look. If he dumb, he ain't worth nothing. And that's any breed. And then once I found, like, this, you've heard this before. Once I knew what I was doing, I realized I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. I'm at that point now.
Yeah. I could put my hands in my pocket. It was my learning experience was like, again, again. And a lot of people don't understand that, because right now they can go to a great breeder and buy a dog, and they can go to another one and buy another dog. And now they put them together and they're breeders. They regurgitate things they've seen off of YouTube. And I heard this, so I regurgitated as if, but even being able to do that doesn't define you as a breeder, because right when you feel like you got it figured out, there you go.
Yeah, in the pit bull community, a lot of people think that that's just us, right? That we are the ones who think that way. Right. It ain't true. It's across the board with all breeds.
Yeah.
As some of those old German Shepherd breeders right now, what they're feeling with what has happened to the Shepherd. Conditioning a Shepherd now is totally different than what it used to be because of the hips. Even conditioning what they quote unquote call a pit bull now is different, because you have the bully side of things that have been bred into it. Now you have a heavier, fatter, thicker dog. They don't condition well as a traditional pit bull. And you can ask some people today and they wouldn't know what a traditional pit bull looked like.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the truth.
And the way I look at it is this: just from my upbringing, I grew up country mostly. We lived in town sometimes, but mostly out in the country. Then when I got pit bulls, I moved to our family's house, home out in the country, and that's where I had my dogs. But so being raised the way I was, every animal you had, whatever it was, didn't matter what it was, had a purpose, had a function. And when you start looking at all these different breeds, let's say you wanted to, you know, what kind of dog do I want? What kind of breed do I want? So whatever it was, like we had German Shepherds when I was very young. And me, it's important to find out the you know, where the breed started, why it was bred in the first place, what is its function, what does it do, what it's supposed to do. So anytime, whether it's horses or whatever, we had horses too. They have to serve a purpose. That's just the way my dad was. If you got a chicken, it's for eggs or eating.
Right.
If you got a Sherman Shepherd, it's for guarding the home, companion to the kids, guarding the kids, protecting the kids. So what has happened, and I hate to see it happening sometimes with pit bull people too, is they got away from the function. When you get away from the function, now it's just somebody breeding mostly on the pedigree, whatever the pedigree says, and the preference of the person that owns the dog.
Right.
What they like a big dog, or they like whatever it is, right? Whatever they like about the dog, rather than keeping it to its function. Because most dogs, like you're saying about the Cane Corsos, they were a certain size. It's the same thing with the Rottweilers. They weren't that big. Because what happens, and I use a boxing analogy a lot, it crosses over. Most of the best fights in boxing are in the smaller weight classes. Mm-hmm. When you get up to the heavyweight, just because of their size, a lot of times the fights aren't that good. But when you have good heavyweight fighters, it's the best fight you'll see, because they do have speed and power, and they're much larger, and you can hear the punches more, and they have more of an impact, all that. So I'm not saying you can't have a breed like a pit bull weigh 50 or 60 pounds, but if you don't keep that function in it, it's just going to be a big fat slob. It's the same thing with Great Danes or Cane Corsos. People want, to them, like you said, bigger is better. That's not necessarily true. But if they were to keep the function in the dog, right, they could be any size they want relative to the breed of the dog. And if they want them bigger, they could breed them to be bigger. But they have to keep that performance and that work ethic and all that stuff up to a high level. If not, you lose it, and it doesn't take long. 1 or 2 generations, and you could take Cane Corsos or pit bulls or whatever it is from a solid breeder that has a family of dogs he's had for a year, get a couple of dogs from him, don't do nothing with them, breed them, and don't do nothing with those, and breed them, the pups. And after, like I said, a couple of generations is gone. They're not even the same dogs anymore, because there's so much involved in breeding with standards and keeping them a certain way, and feeding them, epigenetics and all this crap they talk about now. It's all important. But the main thing is, I say it over and over again, is you have to do something with your dogs. Just the athleticism alone. If you don't do that, just like a person, you get weak, you have muscle deterioration, bone problems, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So if you're not active, it's going to play on your health. And because dogs don't live as long as humans, you see it a lot quicker than you do with human beings. It don't take 40 years. Within a year or two, if you don't do nothing with dogs, you're going to see a deterioration in them, if you know the difference. So that's what matters too. You got the Cane Corsos. I do research, if I'm interested in something. And this is starting to happen with pit bulls too now. They don't look like they did 100 years ago.
They don't look like they did 20 years ago.
Mm.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. And some of the pit bulls, the top of the line pit bulls today, they still look like the pit bulls did 100 years ago.
But look at the man behind it. And I always tell people this. You can have the best website. You can do all the internet tricks you want to do. But at the end of the day, what really makes a stance when it comes to the dog is the man behind it. Mm-hmm. When you talk about You can look at some of the best dogs that you know, Mr. Schoolboy, from the back in the day. You usually could say, hey, that came from so and so's yard, and you knew if it came from his yard, it was cut a certain way.
Yeah.
Don't mean it ain't gonna have no flaws or no weaknesses, but you knew a few things about it that it was gonna show up and be a dog. Might not be the best dog, but it was gonna be a dog, and it was gonna be consistent of what that man produced because he stood on certain standards. I know a few Corso breeders. They got big dogs, and their dogs are functional, and their dogs are gonna put some teeth in you if need be, being big. But you once again, you look at the man behind that dog. He wasn't gonna lose functionality. Yeah, he like a big dog. I mean, nothing's wrong with a big dog, as long as they can function, you know, or have some kind of performance within themselves. But I feel like a lot of times right now, when you look at where dogs have went, whatever breed it may be, so many of them are owned by pet owners that should have never become a breeder. They're pet owners. They don't make the hard decisions. They're not going to get rid of the weaker ones, to where they're making sure that those lines stay strong. And they're going to simply do a lot of things to just make $1 or $2. You know,
they're breeding dogs. They're not breeders. They just breed dogs, basically.
They're having puppies. Yeah, they're having puppies.
Yeah. Now, if we look back, if you go back, let's say 4,000 years ago, and you look at Molossers and you look at Mastiffs, what were they used for? Most of them were used. They're war dogs. They're used in war.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the origin. The Mastiffs are the origin of the fighting dogs. They used to fight them dogs too. The same dogs they used in war to attack, put the spikes on them, all that stuff. Same dogs they fought with. I have depictions of them doing that. Mastiffs. 2 guys handling them, dogs like that. They were big dogs. So to your point, because those dogs were functional, their size, it didn't matter.
Right.
They were still good dogs. And however they bred them, whatever they did, they were able to do it generation after generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the important thing you said is, and it's something that goes around the pit bull world, is who has the dogs, why they have them, and what they do with them. That matters most. Mm-hmm. Where are you getting your dogs from? And just like you said, it's a given almost that some of the dogs ain't going to work out. It don't matter if you Carver, Boudreaux, Schoolboy, you know, STP, it doesn't matter who it is. That's just a given. So that's understood. That's not a focal point.
Right.
But people like those that I just mentioned that know how to breed dogs and have a track record of producing good dogs, you're more likely to get a good dog from them than you would someone else that just, like you said, breeds dogs.
Right. So what do you use? One of the tricks I use when it comes to working dogs, and I use this in a number of ways, is the water. I love to swim a dog. And when I say I love to swim a dog, I love to swim a dog because usually I'm going to get some cardio that street work ain't going to necessarily get every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I did one keep on a female using just a swim keep. Some hand walking and just swimming. Yeah. It works good. It's kind of an all out, like you said, all out workout, calisthenics, cardio, like that. And it can be incorporated, especially during the summertime when it's hot. If you want to do something with your dog, you know, guys I know, they make their own swim tank, or they go to a river or even the ocean and stuff. I don't advise people to swim their dogs in the ocean because of the salt water.
Right.
That's not good. If they swallow too much of it, it's going to affect their kidneys. Mm-hmm. But fresh water in a lake, a canal, or even, like I said, people, they have apparatus where they hold the dog in place while it swims, or they get a big old outdoor, you know, swimming pool and do all that. So I think it's a great tool. Yeah. And I'm asked this all the time. What's the best way to condition a dog? What's the best feed to feed a dog? What's the best this? And I tell them there ain't no best.
Mm.
Everything that you can think of and that you read about and that someone told you Somebody's done it. Somebody's used it. So it's not what you're using, it's how you use it.
Right.
How do you get the best work out of your dog? By chasing a ball, doing a flirt pole,
Right.
riding beside a bike, ATV, using a cat mill or e-mill or carpet mill or a slack mill or resistance work or all this stuff that you can do. So it's not, and the food should be balanced, good food, have protein, fat, a little bit of carbs, vitamin, mineral, trace elements like that. So you can get that from all sources of food. And there's some stuff not good for dog. Do some research, you find out what's not good and what is good. But that's the main thing, is get a program down where you have a basic understanding of how to condition a dog, because it's not one way. But if you understand the concepts of conditioning, you can condition anything. And when it comes to different breeds of dogs, now it's just understanding the function of that dog, the physiology of that particular breed, and how to get it to work, and going through the process of trial and error and finding out what works best, what doesn't work, and then seeing the results of your work. I even did a video because somebody asked me, not a couple of 3, 4, or 5 days ago. The guy goes, how do you test a keep? You know, practice test, you know, and I've spoken on it before. So I did a little video. This is the process you go to. If you want to test your conditioning, you can do this. If you want to test your feed, you can do it this way. So that's that trial and error part where you have to go through it, the hands-on. Me and Joe talked about it more than a few times, that you have to have that experience of going through it, understanding the mistakes you made, trying not to repeat them, but you have to see results from your work. And that goes with anything, with the feed, with the conditioning, with breeding. And if you don't do that, then it's like you said, they're regurgitating what they heard, what someone told them, or what they read. And even if you understand all this scientific verbiage and all these, intelligent words or whatever, and can repeat them, if you haven't put in the work, it doesn't mean anything. It's all theory, basically. You haven't proven a fact.
Everything's turned scientific now.
Yeah.
If they can,
which is good. It's good, but let's be honest. Who's scientific? And I'm not a dummy. I graduated high school. I got 2 years of college. You know, I'm not stupid, but I'm not of higher education. But just because someone is, doesn't mean they know what they're talking about.
Well, Miss Schoolboy, I got a degree from Arkansas and one from Dallas Baptist. So I got a high education, but let me tell you something. Common sense is important. And understanding the dog. Because
right.
You can put all the science in the world in front of you, but I can tell you they ain't gonna apply to every dog the same way.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you don't know how to get down there and read a dog, apply what you know to each dog in different ways, you'll get mixed results, because one way don't work for everything, especially when it comes to the dogs. One of the things that I've conditioned bird dogs, I've conditioned pit bulls, and I can tell you some things are the same, but some things are more strenuous. Some things are more, what's the word I'm looking for? Meticulous when it comes to certain things. That bird dog knows exactly what it needs to do right then, but it has to have patience. A lot of times with the bulldogs, we want them to go balls to the wall.
Yeah.
2 hours, hour and 15. I won't mind to run into a hog with everything he got and stay there. As long as he there, you there, until I get there. So understanding what their purpose is should kind of dictate what your conditioning is.
True.
The water has always worked for me. I even use water in training instances. If I get a dog that comes in and they want to bite, because I do a lot of behavior modification. One good way to help balance that out is I put them in the water. I have an acre pond behind my house, and I swim. Guess what? After 5 minutes of swimming does for a dog that wants to bite. It takes him out of it. And when he comes out, I can walk to him, and he says, "All right." You know, I said, "Need a little more swimming."
Yeah. No, that's true.
And what it does is, so people say, well, do you beat the dog? Do you have to hit the dogs? I got too many methods that I can get him to conform to me, that I don't have to put a hand on him. And he does it himself. He fights himself enough. It's kind of like when you tie a horse to a tree. That horse will fight that tree and fight that tree and fight that tree. Guess who's going to win? That tree.
Yeah.
The tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liken a lot of it to Pavlov's dog theory, right? Where you know, the Pavlov's theory was he had a dog on a meal, or he had a dog in front of him, and he would show the dog food.
Mm-hmm.
The dog would salivate. He'd ring a bell.
Mm-hmm.
He'd do that repeatedly, and eventually, all he had to do was ring the bell, and the dog would salivate.
That's right.
Because he conditioned the dog
Mm-hmm.
to respond to that bell by using the food.
Yeah.
So just like you're doing with the water of a biting dog, you can condition them mentally, and that's what I call a lot of it, mental conditioning, to get the type of reaction or to take away that intent to bite you or whatever it is. This is something I did with my pups too. Is I could put them in the water, and they're pups, so they kind of panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go and they swim around. They start getting tired, right? Where they're breathing real heavy. I'll pull them out of the water.
Right.
So I took them out of the water, right? Give them 10, 15 minutes to relax. I put them, and they could only do maybe 5 minutes in the water.
Right.
Because they're small and they get tired, right? Then I wait 10 or 15 minutes till they catch their breath, put them back in the water. They can swim for a half hour or an hour. Because in my mind, I don't know if I'm right, I'm not a scientist. In my mind, they have the expectation that I'm going to save them. Somebody's going to save them, take them out of that water. So they don't have that adrenaline dump where they panic and like that. It's more of a smooth swim. I could be here all day because Daddy's going to save me. Like I said, I don't know the science behind it. I don't even know if that's accurate, but I've done things like that repeatedly over and over to get a type of reaction out of the dog or to change their way of thinking. Just like, you know, scratching a dog. I would scratch him to a rag over and over and over and over again. Up close, far away, just mental conditioning. That don't mean they're game. It doesn't mean they're like that. But what it does teach them is when I face them up and I cut them loose, that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
My way of thinking back then, well, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 more scratches out of them that I wouldn't normally get the other way. And like I said, it doesn't make them game, but I did that with a lot of things to mentally condition to do this work or do that function. And that's how I got my pups to swim, because most pups, they don't like, you know, it scares them or they don't like the water or whatever. And it was just something I kind of developed by myself.
Let me ask y'all this. What's more, maybe in what order, but what's more important, endurance or strength training?
What's more important?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say endurance every day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Well, for me, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But if you're speaking of endurance, like air and wind and all that, if you don't have that, you ain't good for nothing.
I don't care how strong you are.
It doesn't matter how strong, it doesn't matter how hard you bite, it doesn't matter how fast you can run after a raccoon or deer or whatever. Because just like what's his name, that Green Bay Packer coach said, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Right. So if you can't breathe, you can't do anything. If you're tired or overheated even, you're done. And we've said this on other podcasts before, is a dog can take pain a lot easier than they can take being hot or being not able to breathe. So in that sense, yeah, endurance is more important, because once you can't breathe or you get overheated, that act alone, doesn't matter if you hurt or not hurt, it could kill you.
So you think what I hear a lot is, how do your dogs do in the heat? I say they do fine.
Well, yeah, in my time, my time to do my dogs was between September to about May, right before the heat. I didn't do them through the summertime because that was my time off, vacation time and all that, and it's too hot. Where I live, it gets up to 110 degrees. That doesn't mean other people didn't do that. But what I did is I sent some dogs to the South Pacific, where it's real hot and humid, to Guam and Singapore years and years ago. And the people that got my dogs had got my dogs from me, and they got dogs from other people. And they told me that my dogs did better in the hot, humid weather than the dogs they got from someone else. I don't know where they got those dogs from. But again, that was something that because regardless, you never know, it could be hot. The weather could change from one day to the next, even in November, right? So where I live. So
when it came to my horse conditioning, and they would ask me, how do my Corsos do in the heat? It's this myth that they can't do well in warm climates. They can if they're conditioned to.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell them is, my dogs do fine. Today it was 100 degrees, 108 was the heat index. And I went out there twice to look at them, especially in the heat of the day. They were up under the shade. Some were sitting in their buckets because I have big water troughs. Some of them were laying in the water trough. Some weren't, but everybody was okay. When I walked out there, everybody stood up and they came to the gate. And I walked through and I pet everybody. I played with them. I love on them, and they're fine because they've been conditioned to. Now, would that animal out in that kind of weather in the blazing sun, would it ride on them? Absolutely not.
Oh, yeah.
But you've been to my property before, Joe. Everything sits under shade tree. Where my kennels are, it's about 20 degrees different under the shade tree versus in the sun.
Right.
Why I position it the way that I do. But what I hate to do is see when you hear conditioning, automatically you think exercise. Conditioning is so many different areas when it comes to a dog. Conditioning a dog to be able to handle certain elements. People in the north, they condition their dogs to handle the snow, the cold, because they're outside in it. People down south like us, our dogs, especially if they're going to be outside dogs, they learn to be conditioned to the heat. Joe, in your case, you have about 50-50.
Oh, boy.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas when we was up in northwest Arkansas, it never got as hot as it did in Texas. But in the winter, it got as cold as it does sometimes in the north.
Right.
So you had to, if you had an outside dog, it had to be conditioned to everything because it truly had 4 seasons. You see what I'm saying? And conditioning a dog, in a sense, people can't just get stuck on just the work side of it, or a meal, or walking, or swimming. Conditioning a dog also is something mental, and being mentally tough can save a dog from dying in the elements. And the way that they get that is being exposed to what you would have them to do. If you know your dogs are outside dogs and you want them outside in the summer, don't bring them in the house and put them in there all day. Let them learn.
You know, we have those 4 seasons too. So whenever summer comes around, like now, it's hot. It's 100 over 100 degrees, right? It takes me a couple of weeks to adapt to the heat. When it first starts, you know, it's like, it's hot, this and that. After a couple of weeks, we're good. I can go out, this and that. So dogs are the same. They can adapt to different weather conditions. And to your point, what I was going to mention earlier is, I didn't realize this till years later, but and what we would do during the summertime is we would go out when it's hot and it's dusty, you know, they're on their chains, and we'd spray them down 3 or 4 times a day. Keep the dust down, keep it cool like that.
Right.
what I didn't realize is when we were spraying them down and that water evaporates, it creates humidity
Yeah.
for the dog.
Yep.
So without me understanding back then what I was doing, and I didn't realize this till years later, is I was conditioning my dogs to be in the humidity as well. So when they went to the South Pacific, or I sent dogs to Louisiana, they could handle that change. So it's like Iditarod dogs, you know, they can handle the cold up there because they have an extra layer of fat. Or even the human beings that live up in the Andes, they can handle the high altitude, the thinner air. Their DNA is set up that way. So with dogs, to your point again, is a dog can learn to regulate its breathing, which will control whether it's going to get overheated or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen dogs do that. In the heat, they're not panting, they're not breathing real heavy because they've learned to regulate their breathing so that the oxygen travels through their body without them overextending their heart.
Right.
And by what I mean by regulating their breathing is they're controlling their heartbeat.
So
Naturally or just mentally, however they're doing it. That's what I noticed. And they're I've seen black dog in the middle of the sun like that. They're cool just breathing like that. Not every dog can do that, but you have to, like you said, condition your dogs a certain way, get them accustomed to it. They have to be able to adapt to it, and then through their own process, they don't get overheated. It's the same way when you're conditioning a dog or there to show whatever it is they're doing. Weight pull doesn't matter. If they can control their heart rate, which controls their breathing, they can perform at different levels and in different situations. And they have to do the same in the cold, because the cold can shut them down too. And the cold can dry them out too. So they have to be accustomed going through those weather conditions. And it doesn't take long. You know, it's not going to take 2 or 3 years. It could be just one circulation of all 4 seasons, and they're good.
One of the things, Joe, when we talk about conditioning, me and Mr. Schoolboy, we talk about it all day, every day. And one thing, most people won't understand it because they've never conditioned like that. They've never seen that. They've never heard of a lot of these things. And I think a lot of the problems aren't necessarily guys like us. It's normal people. It's normal families. And somebody just sent me a question, well, how do we condition as a normal family, you know, to where our pets are healthy, or our pets are actually getting out and doing some exercises? What can we do that's not on the level that y'all do it on, but that's functional for us, our kids, you know, things like that. One of the things I love is if you're in an area that might have a wide open space.
Yeah.
That, you know, there's nothing at, it's just being able to take that dog out, let him off that leash, and let him go. Let him run, let him smell, let him pee on stuff, let him, you know, tap into some of the things that most dogs have naturally. And when you let a dog off, as far as constantly having them under containment with a leash or collar or harness or something like that, and you let that dog off and he actually says, I'm free, you'll start to understand what the dog loves. When he takes out running, you'll understand he loves to run, you know. But most animals are confined to neighborhoods, apartment complexes, cities, you know, those kind of things. Those are where you see a lot of the dogs with the problems. Getting a flirt pole. You can make a flirt pole for probably $10. You know, a little piece of rope, a little piece of PVC pipe, a broomstick. You know, you can make a flirt pole out of pretty much everything. And just get your dog and chase your dog, chase the towel, you know, that kind of stuff. You see people all day tugging with the towel with their dog. Put it on a pole, put a little piece of rope on it. Now it turns into an exercise.
Yeah.
That's one good way of doing it. But the open fields, taking them places that you normally don't take them, to where they're not restricted, and let them truly get out and let them exercise.
Yeah, and Mont, when you're doing that, some people might be using balls, flirt poles. It's a good training time to make them stop doing shit. You know what I mean? Like you're working on them outs and stops. You know what I mean?
They ain't chewing up your damn couch.
Right.
Outside, or your wife's shoes, something like that. And a lot of we all know a lot of that behavior is just boredom.
Yeah.
Give me something to do.
Yeah. And the problem though is a lot of times is people just accepting that the dog is going to do that and not doing it, and not redirecting, not giving it something else to interest it.
Right.
It's like, you don't have to allow your dogs to have bad behavior, and you don't have to abuse them like you mentioned earlier. There's ways to change the way they're thinking or what they're focused on. And if you learn how to do that and teach them right from wrong, or what you want them to do, if you can communicate that to them, then you can have dogs inside, outside. They're not destructive. They're not they're house trained. There's some obedience training, and the dog doesn't have to be a nuisance. And that natural work that you're talking about, I think that's the best thing for them.
Right.
Conditioning isn't a perpetual thing. It isn't a constant thing. People like to use the word, I condition my dog. No, you don't. You're exercising them. And that's all you should be doing with your dog, because a conditioning program is a set pattern, a way of doing things where you're taking the dog through a process. You're going to peak him out where he's at his best physically and mentally for some event.
Right. Yeah.
If you're not conditioning your dog for that, you shouldn't condition him, unless at the end of the keep, you're going to do something with it.
Right.
And that was the point that the person asked me, well, how do I test my keep? If I'm not supposed to condition my dog unless I'm going to do something with it, how do I test a keep? And I told them there's ways to do that. As long as if you put your dog through a keep, and I'm talking modern time, not in the past, you put your dog through the keep and you put him at the end, when you've picked him out and finished your conditioning program, and you put him through the stress similar to what he would go through in the event that you're going to enter him in, that's how you can check your keep. You check the feed, you check your conditioning, you check your peak, you check the breathing, all this stuff that's involved with that. But for the most part, exercise is just keeping them fit. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, and it doesn't have to be that strenuous. And it's just keeping them busy because, like you said, they're confined. That confinement makes them crazy. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys are old enough, that if you went to a zoo, you seen they had the wolves and the cheetahs and all this in little bitty kennels, big, like a 10 by 10 kennel.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And those wolves and cheetahs and leopards, they're pacing back and forth like this because that confinement drove them crazy. It took away their natural instincts. Now they're not hunting. They don't have space. They're used to having a large area, and it just drove them crazy. And what it did was shorten their lifespan, which is why a lot of animals in captivity, they didn't live but 4 or 5 years. And that's why now you go to zoos and stuff, and they have a wider area or a big old, a big area, even if it's confined with glass and bars and all this stuff, to give the animals more room so it doesn't make them crazy. Because that's what will happen with dogs. If they don't have some sort of freedom, or they're out doing something, they can go nuts.
Yeah. I'm finna get us in trouble.
Come on.
Hey,
okay.
I done been in a little trouble before. I think he done been in some too.
Because we all have did.
Yeah.
How does a chain help condition a dog?
Oh, you finna start some trouble.
Start some shit.
Well, that's only, look, that is only a recent concept.
It is.
If you want to say it's 10, 15, 20 years. I think I mentioned it on your show, Joe, that the leash, chain hookups, collars go back 4,000 years. That's how they confine their animals in Mesopotamia. Dogs, leopards, cheetahs, hyenas. if you research back there, they had all these exotic animals as pets. So animals have always been confined in that manner. And the problem with people today is how it looks. It looks cruel because the dog is on a chain, because chain is related to bondage, a prisoner or a slave or something like that. That's the concept people have in their head. That's why they think the chain is cruel. But if you're talking about confinement and freedom, a chain compared to a 10 by 10 kennel, they have more freedom of movement and a bigger area that they can cover on a chain than they can in any kennel. Right. And the chain is not enclosed like a kennel is. It's like being in jail. The dogs, when they're in a kennel, they know they're enclosed. They feel it. There's a top on it, their sides. Even if they can look out, they know that. Whereas on a chain, yeah, they can only go so far because they're on a chain, but it's not an enclosed area. And it's just a mental thing for the individual. That's the difference.
So, Joe, I'm going to say this when it comes to a chain. When you get the worst stories, you get the worst things on the news, the dogs are always on the chain. So what do people attribute a chain to? Neglect, abuse, cold, no dog houses, no water,
boo-boo, knowledge.
They attribute all of that together because you see it all together. So what he just said, you won't get many people to admit it. My kennels are 16 by 16, okay? I used to have dogs on 20 to 25 foot chains, and they could go, and they ran, and they jumped, and they ran, and they jumped, and they ran, and they jumped, and they ran, and they jumped. So I still had them confined, correct? Well, in that 16 by 16, they're confined. This is the difference. When they're in that 16 by 16, I let them out. And they run. What? When they was on that 20, 25 foot chain, guess what I did? I took them off that chain, and they ran. They ran on the genie. They ran on the slack mill. They might have went on an 8-mile walk. They might have got in the pond. The key to it is this. You can contribute that chain to as many healthy dogs that live for generations. I mean, for years and years and years. The same way you see them live in a 10 by 10 or 20 by 20. But they don't truly have the freedom, just like he said. But most people are not going to admit that. Now, one thing that I never really did, I've seen it done a many a day. I didn't put a 40-pound dog on a 150-pound chain. Now, when you talk about things like that, to me, that it's like us. If you give me a little weight vest, and you say, "Okay, boy, exercise and put this vest on," and you got a 5 and a 5. Now I got 10 pounds on me. I'm gonna learn to be here because I gotta brace myself. Okay, give me a vest that got 275 pounds on it. I'm gonna slump. It's the same thing with the dog. When you put a huge, thick, heavy chain on them, to me, I don't necessarily agree. And it might be some people that disagree and say, no, they need that weight. Well, to me, I built strength in other ways on a dog. I took them off that chain and we did other things. We did a carpet meal, or we put them on the genie and let them chase and those kind of things. So they got their strength from other places besides walking around with a 100-pound chain on every day, all day. But when you talk about chains, unless a person has seen it, done it, that chain is always attributed to almost a negative connotation when it comes to a dog, because the way it's been shown. You don't see many dogs that are neglected or dying on a 16 by 16 kennel. You don't. You might see them in a little kennel in the house, that they got in the garage, or they done left the dog, and that kind of stuff. But overall, man, that train sometimes gives them more freedom than a kennel.
Yeah.
And that that's kind of what you're saying is what led to these laws being changed, where they have to be in a kennel. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I prefer the chain. There is more freedom of movement. There is generally more space for them to move around. But in either case scenario, they're effective. They're both good. But you have to take care of the animals. You have to realize that they need proper care. And with a kennel, because it's enclosed the way it is, and there's generally a roof over it, at least they'll have, if it's outside, they'll have shade. Where some of these people, they have no shade, and their water bowl gets knocked over, and they're on dirt, and there's rocks and crap and all that. So it's not all just the public's view. There's reason why people show these pictures of dogs being abused on chains or kennel runs, the big runs. Those are great too. So it's not all one-sided where they're just talking crap or saying something that's not happening. It's because of these abuses, quote unquote, that the laws were changed. That's part of the reason.
Right.
And
this isn't for them. This is before you really don't get in trouble with this one. you open the can of worms. This isn't for the people who say, my dogs are never going to go outside. My dogs will never live outside. My dogs have to live in the house with me. I understand that. And I don't think that everything is attributed to everyone. You do what works for you. If hey, I got 2 dogs. I don't want my dogs outside. I want them in the house. This conversation is not for you.
Not for you. Yeah, it ain't for you.
This is a conversation for people who say, my dogs have a purpose and they're going to be outside. Period. And I think that's where we get the fight. We get people that say, hey, my dogs are going to be inside, trying to tell people that say, hey, no, my dog has a purpose different than yours, and this is where they're going to be. Now you got them fighting because you're telling one what they should do with their dog, and it doesn't fit.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Well,
fit.
I'll play the other side too. Is it good for a dog to be inside a house his whole life? Maybe let out every once in a while to go to the bathroom, or maybe you take them a ride here and there in your car or whatever. Yeah, I don't think that's healthy either. To have them inside all the time. When are they getting sunlight? Where are they getting their vitamin D from?
Yeah.
And the word you used earlier was natural, and that's the way I conditioned my dog, as natural as I could. I wanted them out there getting fresh air, smelling this, smelling that, seeing this, seeing that, reacting to certain things. So they're not afraid of the surface they're walking on, or loud noises, or strange people. None of that. I wanted my dogs, if I sent them to someone else as a grown dog, they would be comfortable in any situation, in any atmosphere, with any person. If you knew how to handle a dog, you could handle one of my dogs, because they were good to go. They knew how to work. They knew what they were there for, and anybody that was competent could see that when they got them. And I would tell them the dog will do this, the dog will do that. You can do this and that. You don't have to wait. You don't have to change their feet. None of this stuff.
But you have to clear up one thing though, and you have to. Unfortunately, we have to do this, because what people will say is, "The schoolboy, you had your dogs on chain their whole life." But the difference is this: he was on a chain, but he got out probably more than any dog you had in your house. And he's out walking.
That's true. And they lived on their chain.
Yes.
But I exercised each dog about 3 or 4 days a week, and it wasn't just me. I had family.
Yeah, and
they don't
attribute that. They attribute is he got a dog on a chain. That dog be on that chain his whole life, and he never gets off, and he never does this. And when they find
you're right.
That truly love their dogs, and they truly work their dogs, that dog on that chain probably definitely gets more exercise, more time off that chain than a lot of dogs that live in the house. Because if I live in an apartment, which I know people that, and unfortunately, like a lot of dogs now that I place with families, they're house dogs. When I started this 20 plus years ago, the dogs was outside. Now they are predominantly house dogs. You're right or wrong, Joe.
Yeah. But hey, before you go, don't get us into more trouble. so you're a trainer, right? So
that's what they call me.
How, in your experience of fixing dogs, training dogs, how much of the dog's problems are contributed to giving a dog too much reign of things like in the house or being what we call it breeders, fur mamas, fur daddies? How much is that contributed to problems you have to fix?
So I'll say this. This is just me. This is not a number that I'm coming up as a whole. I'm talking about for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I get 100 dogs this year to train, I would say 60 to 65 of those dogs' problem is spoiled. That they are being humanized.
Yeah.
You know, and where it really shows is this: it shows at drop off. And I understand taking a dog out of his element, bringing him to a situation to where somebody says, "No, you're gonna do it. You don't have a choice. This is why you're here. You're gonna do it." Okay. Where you see the true problem is not the dog. 24 to 48 hours, I gotta get the dog to trust me. Okay. Once I can get him trusting me, because in my 2-week board and train, you can't come out and see the dog in 7 days. Why? That's the question, right? Goes back to conditioning, that word that you put up there today. Once I get him to trust me in 24 to 48 hours, we're saying, now we're rolling. Okay. If you come at the 7th day and you say, "This is my baby. I missed you so much." And I give you the opportunity, you love on that dog and you kiss on him and you make him feel so special. And then 10 minutes later, you leave. And me as a trainer, now I got him for 7 more days, but I'm trying to get this, and done. What do I have to do the next 24 hours after you left? Get that dog to trust me again. So you've messed up the whole flow of the training by coming and doing exactly why he's there, spoiling it. Sometimes I say you can love them into a bad dog. Okay. Most people don't get that, but where you see it, that question you asked me, where it's confirmed when they come and pick up. And then the dog does everything for me. And when he sees them, he jumps right up on them. Boom. They say, and my first question is, how many times did you see him jump on me? No. That dog is conditioned.
Yeah.
He's been conditioned since a puppy to respond to you in a certain way. So that first day of pickup, it's us just simply teaching that dog, this is our new way of life. This is our new way of life functioning going forward. And it's harder for the human than it is for the dog. So I would say out of 100 dogs, and I might be being nice, I'm going to say 65 out of those dogs, problem simply is from the human.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't want to set up a certain set of structure in their home for that dog. Now, take it, I don't think there's anything wrong with a house dog with balance. So when I have people that truly want to get it right and they say, "Lamont, what should I do?" I say, give him some time outside. I go and I train. I go to the gym at 5 in the morning. I'm usually back at the house by 8. Good, put him out at 5 in the morning. It's cool. He ain't gonna overheat. Let him get conditioned to some outside. When you come home in the evening, let him outside in the evening before you put him up. Let him start to condition himself, and then you'll start to see some natural things come into play. Protection. You in the house, Joe. Your dog's been in the house all his life. Where's your threat coming from?
Outside.
All right. So if you have a dog that's never been conditioned to the outside, how does his natural instinct tell him something's wrong outside?
Right. Right.
It's just science can be applied, and you will hear somebody say, no, the dog can but nature says I have to have something developed within myself that was out there in order for me to pick up on certain things out there. That's why when you take a house dog outside and you got a dude come through in a Hellcat that say, wow, that dog trying to beat you back in the house.
Yeah.
You know, because he's not accustomed to those things in the house. Now, if Beyonce on the TV, he probably know that.
Yeah.
You know? He know Beyonce when she, when she come on. Yeah. He's used to hearing things with that volume coming off the TV and those kind of things. And that's why you see so many dogs. I have a really, really nice family that are clients. And no, I'm not going to say who they are, but they have 2 Corsos from me. I trained one, and another, they went to a major thing that trained a major company that's one of the big trainers, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at the videos, that one that is from that major company, mm-hmm. They look amazing. The dog will go, Sue, send him, bite one baby. They yell, he go to the other one, bite him, call him, come on back, right? Looks amazing. The dogs are in the house all the time, every day, all day. The one that I train, she shows it. She doesn't bite a sleeve. I didn't work with her with a sleeve.
No equipment.
I don't know many people that are going to break in your house and say,
no, they ain't going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you put it right. You put it on. And that one right there, she gets a little more natural training, right? So when they said the one that was at the fancy school was done, we said, cool. I said, let's see. He said, no, he gonna bite you. You ain't see his videos? I said, I seen him. That's why I know he ain't gonna bite me. So me and my kennel partner, we come from 2 ways because he's a 2-person, right? You know, he send in one place, he bite, send him to the next. He literally, when we came out at him and we had on sleeves, he perked up. I looked at James, I said, take the sleeves off. We took the sleeves off, and when we came at him, he pulled out the harness. Peeing and running.
Yeah.
Because naturally, he hadn't been developed of what a threat was.
It was a game.
Conditioned
mm-hmm.
to what a threat was. And now when you simply took all the clothes off, his natural ability didn't say, they're a threat. His natural ability say, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If you ask me if a dog is better in the house versus outside, of course, I'm going to say it depends on the dog. If you got a Shih Tzu, a tiny dog, you better keep them in the house. You know, but even them, they need some outside time. But depending on your breed, it's just best that they develop some things naturally by being outside and getting plenty of, exposure that way. And it doesn't mean that they have to live outside on the chain or in the kennel. But their lives should be balanced.
Balanced, yeah.
Yeah, because you bought a dog. You didn't buy a cat.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So that's if that's my opinion, which ain't nobody asked me my opinion. But,
yeah.
No, it's all good. We need to hear it. And I'll say that because this has come up also. And just like I mentioned, anybody that was competent knew how to handle dogs could handle my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to know pit bulls. So if I had a dog, or if I was a trainer, and I'm not a trainer, pretend my dad was the trainer, as far as stuff, obedience and stuff like that, getting dogs to do what he wanted them to do. It's almost like if you sent your dog to a trainer and have it trained for whatever, the person has to be trained as well. The person has to be conditioned, because that's where, like you're saying, that's where they mess up. They come back and the dog reverts back to what it was before. So whatever discipline, whatever you taught them, whatever rules or whatever, the owner has to apply those as well. So if he was allowing his dog to jump on him, even though it was sent to training, the dog comes home or whatever that 7 days and it jumps on him, the owner has to stop the dog from doing that. Yeah. Do the same thing that you did. And that's going to totally change the relationship, because the dog's going to learn not only with you that he can't do that, but with the owner. Even though the owner previously let him do it, they have to stop it. So the owners themselves need conditioning, and that humanizing dogs, like you're saying, that's the biggest problem with domestic animals, not just dogs. I've seen it with cattle, pigs, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do that, then all that work you put in was for nothing, because the dog's only going to listen to you or another person that knows how to apply those same rules, that same training. That's where the disconnect is between owners, and a lot of it has to do with, and even in your day and in my day and before that, most people were raised with dogs. Everybody had a dog.
Yeah. So
there were certain rules you had with the dog. It was for this and that, companionship, play with the kids, do whatever, protect the home. They don't do that no more. So the person nowadays, as an adult, when they get a dog, it's the first time they got a dog. They don't know anything about dogs. Mm-hmm. But they can be influenced by YouTube or TV, or all these vets are coming on. You got to do this and you got to do that, and treat them nice and baby them and all that stuff. No, there's a place for that love and affection. But there's also has to be some discipline and some training and some work ethic and all that. Because, again, in the past, we had animals for a reason, including dogs. And if it was a snake or whatever it was, it had a purpose. My son used to have all kinds. He'd get tarantulas and snakes and lizards and all that. And I don't know if I mentioned it here, but my wife, she can do things with animals that I haven't seen other people do it, because she's that way. Okay, what's the animal here for? What am I doing with it? She's had lizards here come up to her. She'll hand feed them. She can go to the fish tank, and when she goes to feed them, the fish line up in a row, getting ready to be fed. She can stick her hand in the fish tank and pet the fish. And that's all her condition and understanding animals, whatever. And I've seen dogs come at her, gonna attack her, and all she does is look at them and they stop. And it was one time it was a hairy situation. My friend had a dog and was his house dog. It was a pit bull, a red nose, and he had her for protection. And we went to visit him. He opened the door. My wife was walking up to the door, and the dog got past him, and that dog ran right for my wife, screaming and hollering. And all she did was look at it, and about 2 feet from her, the dog stopped and sat down.
Well, you better not mess up.
I'm telling you, man. No, and my son is the same way. And I think a lot of it is they don't have fear of dogs. Me, when I see that, and I said this too, we're going to fight. Me and that dog's going to fight. I'm going to go at that dog. I don't care. I'm going to knock it in the head. I'm going to do whatever. If it's going to, but she's not like that. And they, and my son's the same way. And in their mind, it's a dog. I ain't scared of no dog. Mm-hmm. And whether they convey that to the dog or whatever it is, and my children can be that way with animals too. One time we raised a dog for a friend of mine, and my daughter was out there with the dog, and all it did was look at her a certain way, and she snatched him up. She got him by like that and told him, don't you behave and this and that. And the dog settled down. To her, it looked like the dog was going to bite her kid. And she recognized it, saw it, snatched him up, boom. And the dog behaved after that because she told him to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain things that if you're raised with animals, you know them better and it becomes inherent. You may not even know where it's coming from or why. You just know how to interact with them and how to get what you want out of them. And if you're not, then you need to do a lot of studying, spend a lot of time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you just have one dog, understand that dog, but have some rules for it too.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before too. Outside the house, I was the boss of the dogs. I did whatever I wanted with them. Inside, my wife's the boss, and them dogs would listen to her.
They showed.
And there were certain, there were certain things they couldn't do. Like if there was an infant in a room, the dog couldn't be in there with the infant. It don't matter how good the dog was. Don't matter if it's her dog. She loved it. She was just that way. They can't be around infant babies.
That's right.
They can't they can't mess the house. They can't chew the furniture. None of that. Mm-hmm. And the dogs we had inside, all they did all day long while they were inside was be with her. Follow her around. She's washing dishes. They're sitting there with her. She'd go over here. She's mopping, cleaning, whatever. The dog's right there with her. She's just that way with dogs. And some people have that ability, but I think anybody can get in tune with any animal if they understand it, spend the time, and go through the process.
Right.
Joe, what else are you gonna get us in trouble with tonight?
I'm gonna leave. I was gonna go a little deeper with it, but you made a good point, man. That
you already heard now.
Well, y'all kind of touched on it. I was gonna talk about the humanization. It was a lot of it that is a problem. But you made a good point that conditioning is a bunch of things, because somebody was kind of telling me too, like anytime you go interact with a dog, that dog is learning from you somehow. You know what I mean?
Good or bad.
Good or bad. Yeah.
That's why I think it's important to expose your dog to all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this before too. I'm going to take them everywhere. I'm going to shoot guns around them. I'm going to shoot off fireworks. I'm going to play loud music. I'm going to have the kids running and jumping around and screaming and hollering so that they're accustomed to whatever atmosphere they're in and nothing triggers them negatively. It's normal to them to sit there and somebody playing music loud. It's normal to them to be in the dark outside and come into a brightly lit room, or being from a brightly lit room to a dark room. They're the same, but that's part of that conditioning. And let me tell you something about the humanization. This is what they don't look at it this way. It's not benefiting the dog.
No,
you're hurting the dog. You're screwing the dog up. You're making it something that it's not. And all it's going to be is a headache for you, or you're just going to cow down to the dog. And now the dog is the dominant and you're the beta. The dog will run your house. The dog will, we didn't even discipline our kids in front of the dogs, because I didn't want to get it in the dog's head that they could discipline the children. The children are the boss. Whatever they want to do, the dog has to tolerate it. And I didn't let my kids abuse dogs, but anything they did to them, it was nothing. The dog went along with it,
Right.
Rough play, pulling on their ears, tail, all that stuff.
Yeah. Because you got people blame the kid, for everything.
Man, I hate that.
Man.
Yeah. And I've said this too, and I'll say it here. I'll get myself in more trouble. I don't care if it's the kid's fault. That dog better not act sideways with me. Mm-hmm. I can teach my kid not to do certain things and tell him, don't do that. I don't want to see you doing that. Don't treat the dog that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to let the dog act that way with my children, even if it's the kid's fault. It's a lot easier for me to get the kid to stop doing it than stop the dog from attacking my child. Because they're still animals.
Yeah, we're in a culture now that they don't necessarily do that. They just get rid of the dog. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
They rehome.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And now I've said that too. And now you're giving someone else your problem.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then that's unfortunately the culture that we're in, because people are getting pets, and it's not just dogs, but they're getting pets for the wrong purpose. It's almost like a trinket now, like a purse or you know, pair of shades.
Status or something. Yeah.
You know, and that's once that hat gets old, or those shoes get old, I push them on to the back of the closet.
Yeah. They're all nice and cute when they're little, but them little nice cute things grow up to be big. You know, now you have
so when that's
an adult dog.
I see a lot of now is that it's just let's get rid of them, and that's the unfortunate thing. I get to see it too often now. Because Miss Schoolboy, I'm still in the midst of this. You know, I'm still breeding and that kind of thing. So I get to see a family that had a dog for 6 years, and they moved to a new home. Listen to me, and this is a true story. They moved to a new home. They decided to be hobby farms. They wanted goats. Okay, this dog is with their kids. They love on them, and I'm not knocking the people. It's just not something I agree with. Okay, the dog was great for them. They had 4 boys. She was tough. The boys were tough, and they grew up together. She was 6 years old. They moved and bought 4 acres, and they bought baby goats. Okay, well, they've always told this dog to protect the boys. Protect. And she was balanced. She went to soccer games. She went wherever they went, she went, was sociable. One of the baby goats, you know, rammed the little boy. When he rammed him, the little boy fell and started crying. What was the dog gonna do?
You're gonna
exactly
in the defense mode.
It got the goat.
Protect. Yeah.
So when he got that goat, what did the other little goats do? They ran up too, and he got those goats. Well, the mom said she didn't trust the dog anymore. I said, well, what did you always ask the dog to do? She said, protect my children. I said, what did you think she was doing? Well, she's protecting my son. But I've got too many goats now, and she can't act that way. I said, so if the goat comes up and hits the little boy again tomorrow, what is she supposed to do? Is she supposed to recognize, oh, he's just playing? Or is he supposed to protect the little boy like you've always asked? Now, this is a little boy that they got pictures when he was 5-6 months. He was asleep on the dog. You see what I'm saying? So the dog has set up a natural protection for their child. And they called me and told me they had to get rid of him. And what did I think I could find her a home? Now, this is a decision that a lot of breeders don't want to make, because are you going to put your dog into someone else's home and it possibly be a liability? Because I don't care what a person says, it's a liability.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to have to look and put this dog down? That's a hell of a decision to make. But the family made their decision of our hobby goats are more important. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of when I say we're in a culture of rehoming, that we're stuck with now. I think the genie's out the bottle. I don't think there's no putting it back.
Yep.
Because you have an internet that supports humanizing dogs.
Right.
You know, from the clothes, from the cute clothes to the wagons to the, you know, you got people who dogs now service their children.
Yep. Well, the first question I would ask probably would be, why did you trust the dog around the goats in the first place? That would have been my first question. The second thing, and
around the goats, they've never been around the goats too, right?
The dog had never been around the goats. That was the
right. Why would you put them in that environment?
That was the first day introduction from the dog to the goat. Was the goat?
Right. Boom. Yeah. The second thing for me is, and I've said this over and over and over again, and I'll say it again. I'll keep saying it. We didn't leave our kids unsupervised with dogs. My dogs never bit anybody. Never were in that position to do it. And I had no doubt that if they needed to protect my children or the home, they would do it. They just do it naturally. It's instinct, right? Without any training. Most dogs will do that. Some won't, but most dogs will do that. But we never left our kids alone. Kids were out with the dogs. An adult was out there with them too. And it didn't matter what, it could be a dog they were raised with. And my point is this, not that I thought our dogs would attack the kids, but they might accidentally hurt them. They might jump on them and scratch them. They might knock them over. They might step on the kid. The kid might start crying and they might get a reaction from that high-pitched noise. It could be a negative reaction. So we didn't leave our kids alone with the dogs until they could physically control the dog, knew how to handle them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just standard for me. But I would not put a dog in, and again, that's my background. You don't do that. I wouldn't put a dog with goats or allow them to be with the goats unless I'm standing there and unless I'm training them how to be around these goats. So you have to put them in that situation. You have to have the way I would do it, and I'm not a trainer, is I would have the dog on a lead or whatever, stand out there with my kid playing with the goats, and when the goat knocks him down and the dog reacts negatively, I got to change that. I would have to train the dog to be around them goats with the kid. That would be my way of doing it.
And that's hard.
Because you don't, you can't, a kid wants to buy a horse. Let's say it's a Shetland pony. You can't just let the kid go play with the Shetland pony or jump on it and ride it. You have to supervise them. All this stuff has to be done because if the kid don't know how to handle a horse and the horse bolts, or they could kill him. The horse could step on him. The horse will kick him. The horse will bite him. And not just kids, that's any human, adults. So you have to understand the animals first. First you have to understand it's an animal. So it has natural instincts. And we can't put our instincts on the animal thinking, well, he should do this and he should do that. And the dog never bit nobody, so why did he bite this? You can't think that way. There's a potential for an accident in any situation. So you have to practice preventative maintenance, not put them in a situation where that accident can happen.
Well, Joe,
it's time consuming. It takes a lot and a lot of knowledge and training.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, I always appreciate the opportunity to come on. And I don't ever want to get on here and make it seem like I know everything or I'm just complaining about the way the world is and the way animals are, because I'm blessed to get up every day and work and do what I love to do. And that's with the dogs. And it's not just my dogs. It's my clients, my family, my friends. Just being able to do something that you got to have a God-given talent for. It's just certain things they can't teach you in the classroom.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of the canine colleges now. They call them. People go for 6 to 8 weeks and they give them the title of a trainer. Then you give them a dog and they say, "Oh, he's aggressive." He's aggressive. Me, I guess the fact that I get to train the dogs that nobody else want to train, that they feel like, nah, he can't be fixed. That it just keeps me I feel it keeps me at a higher level of doing what I do. But at the same time, it's certain things you can't fight. And you can't fight people wanting to make their dogs their babies now. Like I said, I feel like the genie's out the bottle. So what I try to do is I try to meet them at a good medium and stop them from running into a brick wall with the dog, to where the dog doesn't ultimately become a liability.
Right.
Because it's nothing like working your butt off all day, every day, and for years and years and years. And then you humanize a dog. Now it bit somebody. Now you're in court and you got to give up half of your life savings.
Whew, yeah.
Because you simply wanted to make a dog a lovable son.
Right.
So when I get a chance to come on here, that's what I want people to know is I understand it from both ends. I try to work with it from all different angles.
Right.
Me, myself, personally, I always feel how I feel when it comes to me. I'm going to treat my dogs a certain way. Like somebody told me I was stupid to put Vulcan on a hog 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
They said, man, that dog so funny. Why would you do that? I said, how do you know his value?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, he one of your main studs, and he does this and he does that. I said, well, let me say this to you. He's one of my main studs because he still can do this and do that.
Mm-hmm.
The times that he gets older and he can't do it no more, he won't be one of my main studs because I understand his time is up. He served what he was supposed to serve for me. Now he can fall back. And when he falls back, he's no longer a stud. Because anytime I breed something, I got to know you'll get out there and do what you're supposed to do. So you can carry on the characteristics and the traits and those things that I want to continue to pass in my lines. So guys like me and several of your other, guests that you have on here, I don't like calling them guests, several of the other dog men that you have on here. Normal families not supposed to know where we come from.
Yeah.
Understand the madness.
Right.
You know why? Because that's not their life. We chose to make this our lives. So just like if you're a doctor, and you choose to make that your life, you're supposed to become the best you can possibly can. That's what we choose to do. And we can't expect normal family people to understand that mentality. So at some point, we either gonna watch them crash and burn, or we gonna step down a little bit and say, hey, well, maybe try this or maybe add this to what you're doing. And that's what I have to do on a day-to-day basis. It's not always pleasant.
Yeah.
We want to say, mother, what are you doing? But you can't, because a lot of times they're making mistakes simply because they just don't know.
Yeah.
And they weren't born into dog training, so they're not supposed to understand the psychic of a dog. And if you're a trainer, I don't care if you're doing protection, obedience, PSA, bird dogs or whatever it may be. It's the psychic of the dog that gets you to that next level. It's finding the psychic in that dog that can keep you on that meal for an hour and 15 minutes. It's the psychic that continues to get everything you possibly can out of a dog. It's not the physical. If I walk a dog, I can physically make him do it. But if I can tap into that sucker to say, when I go, you go. If I go 4 miles, you go 4 miles with me. So
I didn't mean to distract you. That's Stevie Sullivan talking about Lamont is aggressive.
Steve, wind that one right there down.
Yeah.
So those are the things that, like, I'm thankful for on a day-to-day basis. Whether I do this another 4 years or another 10 years or another 4 months, I'm appreciative of just being able to understand that part of it, because it gives me the opportunity of sitting down with people like Schoolboy. Now, how you tell me I can't drink and eat? Well, he's smoking. Now,
I'm addicted to smoking, and you're not an alcoholic. How about that?
Hey, let me knock out a couple questions, because I know it's getting late. Rick is gonna come do a show on talking about the raw diet. I talked to him today.
Okay.
At what age is best to start protection training? Understanding obedience training comes first. There was a question and a comment. What age is good for you, Mark?
There isn't. I base it off the dog. So you can start games early. Of course, games lead to the drive and those kind of things. If I know it's a dog that's showing some signs that it possibly could be a protection dog, I'm gonna start just doing those type of things early as possible. Tugging, playing, chasing, flirting, those kind of things. A lot of praise, a lot of play. So there's no age really that I guess you can give to start that. You can start that at 6 weeks old. You can start it now at 4 weeks old. You know, throwing a tennis ball in there and seeing who's attracted to it, or pulling a piece of tug through the for the litter, and you know, see who is attentive to it. But he said something at the end that is the most important, is the obedience. If you can't tell them to sit, you shouldn't tell them to sick them.
Yeah, yeah, you good.
Yeah, so the obedience side of is important. Not gonna tell the municipality that this came off of, but a canine officer behind the house, and his dog was in a bite, and this is work dog that he used on patrol, and he couldn't get him out the bite. And how he ended up getting him out the bite, he took his hands and he reached up under the dog and he took his nuts and he twisted them. And he kept twisting them until the dog finally let go. And this is an officer that is on patrol every day, 5 to 6 days a week with this dog. So imagine if that was somebody in the public.
Boy.
And the obedience isn't there. The out wasn't there. So, you know, and it's not to shine light on him, and I wasn't trying to do that in a bad way. But when he finally got him off, I said, man, you can't call him in an out. He said, man, I'm gonna be honest with you. We don't even work on a lot of obedience. I work on a lot of drug detection and search and rescue, not search and rescue, but search. You know, I said, what? You didn't feel like the obedience part was more important? He said, no, not for what I do. But he got in a tight, and he had a situation to where he got in trouble because he couldn't call that dog off of a perk. So the obedience would have saved him a lot of trouble in the long run. So if you're gonna do anything, big dog, just do a lot of play, because every dog ain't a protection dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that I hope that helped him.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of things here. Don't take this the wrong way, but all that police officer needed was a breaking stick. If the dog's not going to be obedience trained, that's what I would use.
Yeah.
In a few seconds, that dog would have been off if he knew how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, you know, my history, my past was geared towards competition. And this is exactly to your point. So for me, everything I did with them from when they were babies was geared towards that. Work ethic, prey drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this before too. We're Mother Nature. We set the rules. We make the boundaries. We do whatever
Right.
Pertaining to that dog, whatever we're trying to get out of it, even if it's a pet. And that's why you need that discipline. And that's why you need that obedience training. I did a little bit with my dogs. There's certain commands I would use that they all understood. And it didn't have nothing to do with the fighting aspect. It was just from a dog aspect. Because they're a dog first. Whatever breed you have, it's a dog first. Even a functioning, working, sporting animal. So during that time that they're doing that function, it's only a small part out of their life. It's not their whole life. And when they're not doing that, they're a regular dog. So what kind of dog do you want to have? What kind of dog do you want to be proud of? What kind of dog do you want to have as quote unquote a family member? That police dog, most of his time, he ain't getting people. He ain't doing that. So what is he doing for the rest of his life? Is basically the even the competition that I used to do in the past. It's hours out of their life. That's all it is. So the other time, they're a dog. And that's what I've tried to convey to people. Mm-hmm. And it has to start, like you said, when they're tiny. Whatever it is. You can teach them when they're small. You can potty train. If we could potty train a dog, you could teach it all kinds of stuff. They teach dogs to ride bicycles in circus. They teach them to jump through a hoop of fire. They teach them to drive cars. You look at pictures from 1930, a dog driving a car. So what is the potential that you can teach a dog? It's not unlimited, but there's a lot of stuff you can teach them. And you'll be happier with the end product if you have some standards and rules for your dog, just as a dog. And you won't have them headaches, and you won't have it accidents and liabilities and all that stuff. I think that's what people don't get in their head. This stuff that we're talking about is to benefit the people as much as it is the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Joe, one thing to add to that gentleman's question is knowing what your purpose is for the dog versus just going out and saying, well, okay, I'm going to do a protection with him. Are you going to do a full protection? Or are you going to do enough protection to where that dog's sense is raised and can acknowledge a threat? There's so many different levels when it comes to protection that most people don't know, because a lot of them, they haven't been taught, they haven't been told, they haven't been, pointed in the direction of and given choices of what it is that you want to do when it comes to that. It's just like an obedience. You have basic obedience, advanced obedience, and so on and so on. There's a lot of that in protection too.
Mm-hmm.
Every dog don't go full out to a full out protection. So him knowing exactly like, okay, I got kids, because the protection dog got to be put up when people come over.
Yep.
Protection.
Yeah.
They've sold this narrative. If I got a true protection dog, that's what he is. So if I have children, you have a son and a daughter. Do you want, when your nieces and nephews come over and they wrestling with your son like boys do, and your son hollers, what their protection dog gonna do?
Boy. Yeah.
So you have to know the levels of these things of kind of where you want to go and what the purpose is. And unless you live in a certain kind of lifestyle that requires you to have a protection dog, that isn't always common. So him knowing the purpose of, what he wants the dog for, it helps to where it gears you towards the movements of your training. So
yeah, he said he might come up to Dallas to holler at you.
Don't come on. I'm just like, man, you more than welcome to, brother.
Yeah.
We open about 363 days out the year.
he over in San Antonio.
Oh, he ain't that far.
Yeah.
Tell him I'll be in Sakine next week.
Oh, okay.
I'll be in Sakine next week, so that ain't too far. He can come down there and chop it up with me.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna take a couple more questions, guys, because it's getting a little late. I saw that slat meal. I'm gonna skip that one for today.
Mm-hmm.
Catch Schoolboy, you covered that slat meal question. What's the best meal? Maybe you can hit that on your show.
What's the best meal?
Yeah.
Again, they all have a different purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
And they all, you can use one meal, you can use 2 meals, you can use 3 meals, meaning some people just use a slat meal. Yeah. Some people just use a carpet meal. Some people use an E meal. Some use 2 of the 3, some use 3 of the 3. So you're getting different types of workout, and depending on the dog, how they work it or how you teach them to work it, then you'll get different results from it. So basically, flat meal, because it moves real easy, it's for building wind. And doing sprints. But if a dog doesn't do a sprint, you could do endurance if it's at a slower pace. The carpet mill is for because there's drag on it. It has a tendency to build more strength. It's not as free turning as a slat mill. The E mill, of course, it has a speed thing on it. So some people use it just for cooling the dog down after his main workout. It would be akin to after you do a workout, you want to walk your dog out till he cools down. And then you take him in, rub him down, and then after all that's done, you feed him. But it also could be used to, depending on the speed you use on the E mill, it could be used for endurance. It could be used for sprinting. and they're just different apparatus. But again, you have to become familiar with it. And back to my point, there ain't no best one. It's whatever, uh, however you use it and whatever you can do, use it however you can use it to get the best out of your dog. But again, even mills, cat mills, treadmills, turntables, flirt pole, all that, you should start it as early as possible, teaching your dog how to work it so that he knows how to do it his whole life. You can take an 8-week-old puppy, put it on a slap mill that spins freely for a minute, 3 days a week. You're not working the dog. You're not stressing the pup. You're not doing anything except teaching him how to use that apparatus. And honestly, in the past, guys didn't do that. And I could never understand that. Why are these dog men, experienced, famous dog men, they don't do nothing with their dog until they got them hooked up and ready to go and put them in a keep, and now they're teaching them how to use a treadmill? The dog never learned it before. It just never made no sense to me. So again, that's what I'm saying. What I mentioned earlier, everything I did was geared towards competition. Even if the dog didn't make the cut, no harm, no foul. Hey, you got some exercise. Not going to fit my breeding program. Okay, he's out of my breeding program. He's called out of my breeding program. Because when we say call, people think you're putting dog down, killing them all. That's not what it means.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking them out of your breeding program. If you're a breeder, anyways.
Yeah.
You're something else, well, then that's something else. But
Hey, Joe.
The more you can teach them, the earliest age you can teach them without stressing them, ruining them, pulling joints, or making them hate what you're trying to get them to do, make them love it, then you should start as early as possible.
Hey, Joe, I got a question that was just sent to me.
Okay.
Hey, Daddy, when you and Cousin Joe through playing on the computer, can you get some Hill Valley Ranch?
yeah. Is that Madison?
They want some ranch. No.
Okay. We're gonna wrap this show up anyway. Yeah. Buck City Kennels, my brother from another mother. What's up, bro?
What's up, Buck City?
Everybody go follow La Potenza Cane Corso on Instagram and on Facebook. And actually, Lamont got some really good videos on his YouTube. He ain't got a lot of them, but they some ones you might want to watch. Schoolboy, hit his cash up. Is right there on the screen. He always he's retired, and he always, this is what he do, drop knowledge. Ain't no nation like a donation.
I'm the only one that got no cash.
Man, you should have said
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm the only broke one on the show. I'm the only broke one on the show.
Yeah, but
your family. Your family.
Yeah. Mont do consultation calls. Ain't that right, Lamont? You do consultation calls.
Yeah.
So y'all can hit them up on the Instagram or whatever. I'm gonna let you guys close with anything you might have.
Hey man, it was a pleasure. I'll always let a legend, end it. So it's always a pleasure when I get to talk to old dog men. And that I don't use that term loosely when it comes to, men and dogs, because I was just raised a certain way. So this Schoolboy, anytime I can come on and I can sit and listen and I can gain something that I didn't necessarily have prior to me being on here, I'm appreciative. One day I'm gonna be sitting in your seat when I say I'm retired. But I think mine gonna end a little early than yours. I think I got about 4 or 5 more years in me.
Yeah.
So
well, I can only imagine where you'll be at that time. You're just gonna get better and better.
Well, believe it or not, I'm looking for a career change. So I think it might be a little early than I think. I'm gonna just downsize a little bit. I'm gonna keep me a couple of dogs that's gonna work the way I love them to work, and I can stay true to who I am and the breeds that I love so much. So I get a lot from you guys when I talk, because I know a lot of the older men, and we'll talk outside of this, but
yeah.
I know a lot of the older men, and I was able to go to a lot of their yards when I was a young boy, teenager, and that those times now are priceless, because they're far and few. Unfortunately, we done lost some of them, so you can't go back to them anymore. And I just thank for this platform because Joe, you're doing a great job. You're bringing up people that deserve to be on. And then people like Mr. Schoolboy, we done had to sit still in the chair for so long and be quiet because everybody didn't want to hear this knowledge. Now they want to pay for it.
Yeah.
Joe, keep doing what you're doing. And anytime I can help, I'm more than welcome to. I'm more than anxious to, at the end of the day. So you're gonna get some slack on some things, but at the end of the day, you realize one thing: if you don't bring them on here, somebody else is.
Yeah. I'm gonna catch some big slack next week. You know about that show coming up.
I promise you this: go live. They're gonna tune in.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, why not you?
Yeah.
And I had to ask myself.
Exactly.
Watch this. I had to ask that of myself when I came out of a situation, and you know what situation I talked.
We done been down through there. Yeah.
Why not you?
Yeah.
And, you ask yourself that them days that you second guessing yourself, and everybody's gonna have an opinion, just like a butthole. Everybody got one. But then at the end of the day, you started this with a purpose, and it was to bring on the people that people wanted to know, and people that could bring some knowledge to people outside of the internet. Because I can tell you this, me and Mr. Schoolboy talked about conditioning, but we damn sure didn't talk about the things that ain't on the internet.
Yeah.
Hey, we got some things that we didn't talk about that I know we still got. And
yes, sir.
If I didn't learn nothing else, the old dog man only gonna give you what he want to give you.
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, Schoolboy, we only gonna let you see what we want you to see, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And
unfortunately or fortunately, that's the truth.
You hear coming out the woods, you say, "What's that?"
Let me say something too. Yeah, you don't get you guys doing what you just did. That's a help to somebody because a lot of I noticed one of the things that made me start doing this. I noticed a lot of people not accepted in this dog where you can't get the knowledge. And I was fortunate because Lamont one put me in. So and he said something. You guys better peep. He said he's looking for a career change and things like that. So you better soak up some of this knowledge while we got him still in it. You know what I mean? And he's done a tremendous job. He's respected all over the country. Anytime, man, y'all hear the calls I get sometimes. Schoolboy, Lamont, man, that's a real dog. I just want to talk to dude. I get them kind of calls and emails all the time. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate you both coming out. This is an instant classic.
I appreciate it. Miss Schoolboy, it's always a pleasure, brother.
Always. Thanks for having me on, Joe. And I was really impressed by you, Lamont. And I learn all the time too. I learned some stuff from you. And I, don't hate me for this, but I might borrow some of what you said, use it in a video or give somebody advice. Because the thing with dogs, there's a lot of similarities regardless of what breed it is. That's why me and you could sit here and have a conversation.
Wow.
And you having a bulldog background, that helps too. But you have Cane Corsos, they're dogs. So I can learn more about Cane Corsos, and maybe I just happen to fall in the right place from one of the best. There's a reason for that. And I don't think it happened by accident. Right. And I was honored to be here with you. And Joe, thanks for having me on. We'll do it again if you want, anytime. I'm ready. Much respect to you both.
Yes.
And thanks to the people in the chat that tuning in.
Yeah.
And for your support.
Time out, man, because we ain't the best looking dudes. So y'all sat there and looked at us for an hour plus.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I asked my wife one time, why did you marry me? I ain't good looking. I ain't rich. I ain't talented. She said, because you're funny. You make me laugh. I said, I'll take it. That's good enough. I'll take it.
And you scared of it because you know how she do dogs.
yeah, that's why I get one of them on me. Yeah.
Well, all right, fellas. It's been good. Hey, guys, we'll catch you next time. Think me and Schoolboy, we coming back Saturday. So, all right,
sir.
See y'all later.
All right.
Peace.
But